What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from RANTS. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Alright, so, Viggo Mortensen excited to see how Lord of the Rings show interprets Tolkien. Now, I will say for my opinion, I'm excited, but I'm also very apprehensive. And the reason why I'm apprehensive isn't because I think it's going to be a bad show. I don't think it will be. Amazon has spent a lot of money on this, up to $1 billion. But they're expecting, Game of Thrones like ratings. And anytime that you've got that high of a bar to set, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. And I think in this case, that's probably going to happen. You have on a lot of these streaming services, you have some really great shows. You have like the Umbrella Academy, you have the Mandalorian, you have WandaVision, you have, The Witcher. You have, well, Witcher's not on one of the streaming services, but you get my point. Like, there is a lot of shows out there that are top-notch shows in their own right. The Boys is another one. But they're not Game of Thrones level. The only show that I've ever seen in the last couple of years that ever thought that it could live up maybe to Game of Thrones and it failed miserably was The Witcher. I mean, I personally enjoyed season 1 of The Witcher, but it's not even comparable. Like to me, it's barely better than or equal to the worst of Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones, whether you loved it or hated it, you gotta admit there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of, whether you hated some way some of these characters went or loved how some of these characters went, you gotta admit that there was at least some characters there that you were drawn to. You were drawn to find out how that story ended. I can't say that The Witcher pulls me along quite as much in that category. So, of course, it failed miserably to do so. So when you're talking about a show that is, $1 billion cost, they paid a lot to Tolkien's estate to be able to even make this series. So for them, I think it was like 230 million or something along those lines. It was just outlandish. The amount of money that they put towards that. So when you're talking about, that much money and that high of expectations, I just feel like you're just never going to make that. And if you do, it's a brilliant move. It's literally would be a once in a lifetime like show. And if you can do that and you can pull that off, man, that's fabulous. That's great. Of course, you've got a fan base. You've got a large fan base that is hungry for new shows and new movies. But you got to realize that even that fan base didn't really accept the Hobbit movies. To me, those movies, they were just poorly made in a lot of different ways. They didn't have the same magic that Lord of the Rings had. The Lord of the Rings movies. They didn't have that same magic. They didn't have that same story that just was intriguing from beginning to end. There was a lot of things that just didn't make sense to it from a story perspective. Some bad acting in there. Some characters that really didn't even need to be there. Some characters got too little time. It was, a lot of the story arcs, didn't really get a fitting end in at least my opinion. Or just, some of the story arcs just didn't work. It didn't make sense. But, I'm excited that Viggo Mortensen is behind it. But that still doesn't make me think that, hey, we've got, the next Game of Thrones on our hands. I don't even, when I think of this series, I don't even think of that. I think of maybe a really good show. Maybe up to like The Boys level or something along those lines. And of course, I get it. The Boys, it's a comic book series, but it did have a loyal fan base, while not anywhere as big as of course, Lord of the Rings. You could say the same thing for The Witcher. That come with a huge fan base. And if those things didn't live up to expectations, and the Hobbit movies didn't live up to expectations, then that's just a really high bar to be setting for this new series. But let me go ahead and read y'all some of what they've wrote here. It says right here, Viggo Mortensen, who played Aragorn in Peter Jackson's movies, says he's excited to see how Amazon's Lord of the Rings series interprets J.R.R. Tolkien's other writings on Middle Earth. It says, it goes on to state down here, it says, now speaking to GQ, Morton says that he is excited to watch the Lord of the Rings show for two reasons. First, he thinks it will be interesting to see how the show interprets the work of Tolkien. Secondly, he says that Bayona is a good director, which he believes is reason alone to watch the show. You can read his full comments below. Director by a Spanish director. Bayona, I'm interested to see what they do. They've been shooting that in New Zealand. Bayona is a good director, so it'll probably be worth watching. I'll be curious to see what they do, how they interpret Tolkien. I don't know how much the Tolkien estate has allowed them to use. Not quite sure why he even mentioned about the Spanish director part, but whatever. And of course, Elijah Wood, who played Frodo, he also said he was super fascinated in this upcoming series. And then it goes on to state just how much that this is actually already cost. It says, and Amazon will have to make sure fans tune in their millions. The tech giant dropped $250 million to acquire the rights to the Lord of the Rings show from the Tolkien estate, and there are reports that the show's budget will exceed $1 billion, making it easily the most expensive ever made. If the show is to succeed, it will need to be a hit on par with HBO's Game of Thrones, something many streaming companies have tried and failed to achieve. But at least they can be assured of Mortensen's support when the show is finally released. It doesn't hurt to have these actors on board for it. But to me, it kind of seemed like Mortensen was more interested in the director that's going to be a part of it, that's going to be directing it, than he was about the actual show itself. Of course, he brought up the Tolkien estate, and he wasn't quite sure exactly how much they were going to allow them to do. So maybe that's kind of a red flag to a certain extent, that he's kind of wondering about that as well. But I don't think it hurts to have somebody like Elijah Wood or Viggo Mortensen. I don't think it hurts to have them on board. I think that does help. But, I just don't like when shows or movies or anything sets themselves up for failure like that. That no matter how good it is and how much fans love it, there's this risk of maybe it don't make it to a season 2 or something along those lines, simply because it just don't live up to the standards that they've set forth. And I get it. When you've got anything that is Lord of the Rings, you're going to have a huge budget. You're just going to have a huge budget. And you're going to have high expectations. But I just kind of feel like when they're talking about Game of Thrones, like ratings, I mean, that was a cultural phenomena for a couple seasons there. I mean, that was something that everybody talked around the water cooler, or just on the phone about, wondering what they were going to do the next week. I mean, or next season. It was one of those kind of like shows. Those shows come along maybe, you could even go so far as say maybe once in a lifetime kind of like shows. I mean, it kind of was, at least to me, it was. I mean, there really hasn't been a show that has really filled that void for me since it's been over. Um, I've enjoyed some shows like the Umbrella Academy, and like the Boys and a few of these other kind of shows that I've really got behind, but they're not. They haven't filled that void. Sons of Anarchy was one of those that was to me a great show that I would say it almost kind of was that way, at least for me. I know it wasn't, on a cosmic scale when it comes to, fans across the board. But that was one of those shows for me that was kind of way up there above anything that was out at the time or, before or after in a lot of different ways. So I'm excited about this, but I'm just like, ooh, watch what you say, Amazon. Don't get yourself so hyped up for this and get fans so excited because they're going to be expecting something along the movies. And I get it. They got a big budget, man. They've got enough to, have scenes that are up to what the movies were. So, I mean, all power to them. But I kind of feel like, they're just throwing money into the fire at this point because I don't think it'll live up to the expectations of fans and to the ratings. Even if they had almost all of the Lord of the Rings fans, I just don't see how it would be ever enough to satisfy what they were wanting, the ratings that they were wanting. But we'll just have to see. Let me know if what y'all think about this. Do y'all think that it's just got a bar set a little bit too high? When I was reading that, I mean, I know I keep repeating that, but that's just something that just keeps coming in my mind is, man, this show, even it could be great. It could be, have outstanding ratings, but I mean, it could still fall short. And then what's going to happen season 2? I mean, is it going to be worth that? Or are they going to feel like, hey, we didn't get the amount of money and the viewership that we were expecting, so we're going to just pull it? I mean, what could happen if some situation like that happens? I mean, but we'll just have to see. But let me know, guys, what y'all think on it. Let me know if that's a worry. Any of the worries that I've just mentioned, is that something that y'all feel like is maybe concerning? Do you feel like it'll live up to a Game of Thrones? Do you feel like it'll exceed Game of Thrones? Who knows? I mean, it is Lord of the Rings after all. Like Lord of the Rings, if there's any franchise that really could just blow Game of Thrones out of the water, it would probably be Lord of the Rings. I mean, either Lord of the Rings or a Harry Potter series. Of course, they've got that Harry Potter series coming out. Well, I think it'll do good. I don't think it's going to be Game of Thrones good. But, we'll just have to see. But it's the rare franchises that can come to that level of expectations or to meet that level of expectations. So we'll just have to see. But, guys, anyways, thanks for watching. And y'all take care.